Assalamualaikum askan bi ñu nuyuwaat leen fii ci Star TV seen programme bi Talk to the Nation wherever you're watching us from. You're reminded that you tune into Star TV, your program Talk to the Nation, and I am your host Kausu Baji. With me in the studios today, we have a veteran activist, well known for human rights, but when it comes to national conversations, he's a key pillar in expressing what are issues that the young people of the Gambia need, what women need, generally what we need as a country to grow. With me is Mr. Madi Jobate. Uncle Madi, we welcome you to Talk to the Nation.
Thank you. Glad to be here, Yeah.
Today, we intend to discuss on 6 major issues. One of them is the issue of democracy and its concept. But also we want to talk about rights and freedom, because more often than not we will hear, when it comes to rights and freedom, people will hear the issue of Uncle Madi, either calling for young people to actually engage on their participation as Gambians and stuff. But also we will want to talk about the political systems, because this is something that is very important, the current status of the country, politically and socially. And then we would also look at governance and leadership, because once you talk about a nation, we know the primary duty bearers is the state.
Yep.
And these are issues that are mainly represented by the political governance and also leadership. Okay. And finally, we would look at few follow-ups and then before the closing. But first, and then the conversation also will be both in Mandinka and in English. Yeah. But first, governance and democracy. Once we talk about governance concept, many times you hear people will tell you democracy is not the only way out, or it's not the best way for governance.
Yeah.
But democracy is not the best way for even people to choose. In fact, more often people will criticize the election process. What's your take? And first, what will lead us to a better understanding of democracy and governance?
Thank you. Yeah, well, this issue of democracy and governance is it's a long-standing conversation or argument. I remember probably the most popular prime minister ever in the UK, Winston Churchill, once said, democracy it's not the best of systems, like governance systems, but just that of all these systems we have tried, democracy is also better than all of them. Okay. All right. So that the point that has to be understood first and foremost is that we govern ourselves. Every society governs itself. If you go way back to the beginning of humankind, as long as people sit together, they'll have to manage their affairs. Absolutely. Because every day they have to get up, their feeding, their shelter, their clothing, their security. These are basic needs of society. And human beings have been dealing with this issue. And as our population grows, certainly we would have to have more needs and more issues so that we would create laws, either written or not written, and we'll create a culture. Culture itself is a form of governance because it contains a lot of the unwritten ideas, institutions, processes, and so on. So essentially, society has always governed itself. The issue has been in what form of governance. Okay. So today we're talking about democracy, and for a long time we're talking about democracy. Before we had kingdoms and empires. We have kings, emperors who come from a particular family, and we know how all of those kingdoms also came about. It is a question of conquest, and domination and control. All right, and so power, voice is in the hands of that family, that ruling class, and that has been the case in many parts of the world. In fact, everywhere in the world. But as societies move on, I'm sure we all know also there has been a lot of revolutions, uprisings. All right, in many ways. Centuries ago, because people always are seeking freedom. They want to free themselves from the control of some people, whether they are colonized or whether they are controlled, dominated in one way or the other. That has always been also the story of humankind. So that as we move on as a society, as human beings, I think increasingly what has become obvious is that we need a society, or we need to live a life in which we are secure, in which we have opportunities to seek our desires, our needs, to satisfy, those things, and, to pursue our interests, all right, to live in an environment in which all of us, at the end of the day, can live together. So kingdoms broke down, empires broke down, nations start to emerge, all right, so that if you look at Africa, you look at Gambia, you go some 100 years ago, 200 years ago, that was nothing like the Gambia.
Absolutely.
All right, but now we have a nation state called the Gambia. We have Senegal, we have Ghana. So even if you go to Europe or China, or Asia, you will find those things there. But when those things are created, like nations are created, and one can talk about what nations are based upon. Sometimes it's one linguistic community, sometimes it's multilinguistic, and so on. But then when they are created, how do you manage them? How do we run our affairs? How do you manage the resources of that nation? So this question of really governance has always been there, and various methods have been used. But as I said, increasingly as we gain more knowledge, more experience, and the world is evolving, there came a point when it became obvious that whatever it is, people have to have freedom, all right, as individuals to live in a society, not to be discriminated because of your ethnicity or disability or age or your origin, but you have to have voice. Absolutely. In the way the society is going to be run, in the way resources are going to be distributed, and so on. And we can recall Edward Francis Small saying no taxation without representation, because at that time Gambia was governed, all right, in 1920, all right. But then the Gambians themselves who were here, or the people who were in that territory called the Gambia, we were not electing anybody, all right. So A.F. Small said, no taxation without representation. What does that mean? It means each and every Gambian, therefore, should have a say of the people we elect to manage, the taxes and the resources. So that is a matter of freedom. It's a matter of human rights. All right. But that also requires, therefore, because when you say representation, it means institutions have to be created. So who should be in that institution? All right. So as these things evolved, well before Edward Francis Small, we saw these ideas emerge in Europe, because Europe was a very hard kingdoms and empires, all right, which were very oppressive, too much poverty, oppression, discrimination, in England, in France, in Germany, and so on. But over time, certain individuals begin to have ideas that, look, this is not the way we are going to run this society, because it's so much injustice and violence and oppression. Okay. So the idea of democracy, which is an English word which itself came from a Greek word, speaks to the issue of people, being the basis for the running of the affairs and the management of society. Now, where you talk about that, then human rights is in the center of it.
Problem begins. Where, the will of the people, how and what is the understanding of those people when it comes to how to elect representatives? What is the understanding of those people? What are the conditions that they are going to put in place to make sure that, before we would say these are the people that should be elected, those people themselves should understand what their need bases are, what is their level of awareness towards election, towards even electing or choosing representative, because election is all about selection or election of representative. What is the need base of that particular community or constituency or country as per the next 5 years or 7 years, depending on what laws they made. But we've realized that the primary duty bearer for such is the state, which is also elected. So as a result, many a times, when people are in the top echelon of governance, they don't want to raise the awareness bar high, because they will want to create that environment whereby people will be in a need base, that be it their social rights, be it their educational rights, whatever the case is, they must create a vacuum where people will need that. And when it is heading towards election time, then they will print banners, they will print T-shirts, they will give bag of rice, they will give sugar to people. And then that might, to a certain degree, give a wrong impression about people, re-elect or elect them into office, and then they will continue to pay the price for the next 5 years or so. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so it just shows you, first of all, democracy is about human beings.
Yes.
And human beings have their weaknesses, they have their shortcomings, they have their strengths. Human beings are informed, but they can also be uninformed.
Absolutely.
Human beings can be selfless, but they can also be selfish. Human beings can be peaceful and just, but they can also be unjust and violent. So, therefore, if we are running this system called democracy, it would happen that, yes, it can be abused, exploited by certain individuals. We can elect people based on a promise, all right, based on their, what they campaign for.
Yes,
only for us to put them there, and they are saying something totally different. And we saw our president himself say, during campaign you can say anything, and then, so, we've seen promises made in 2016, system change, and then we elect people in the Gambia, and we saw something different. All right. So that at the end of the day, a lot of actors and factors interplay in democracy.
Okay.
And, but the good thing though is that democracy also has an inbuilt ability, mechanism to correct itself. Because the fact that you have elections every 5 years, you can remove a certain elected official through elections, all right. But at the same time, it has also other mechanisms, whether it's court systems, all right, whether it's the media, whether it's the civil society, and above all, it upholds the idea of, freedoms, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, and so on, so that at the end of the day, even before you get to elect somebody or remove somebody, you can protest to stop a certain thing, or you can go to court. Yes. Or you can expose, let's say, corruption, abuse of power, and so on through the media, through civil society. So democracy. The good thing, as I said, therefore, is that it has all the necessary mechanisms, processes, tools to deal with also the fact that human beings, as human beings, can seek to try to undermine democracy, that is, undermine development, freedoms, rights, undermine the peace and stability of this country because we elected you into office.
Yes.
Yes.
Arguably, people would say what you've mentioned as one of the tools, that is the fact that every 5 years there are going to be election. This is what is also drilling most of the underdeveloped countries or developing countries, simply because once a president is elected, instead of all of us coming together to work on a common objective to make sure that, okay, one, we will amplify whosoever is elected to be in office and achieved his or her set goals. No, but you see people, like, from the very day election ends, they will continue to propagate against, they will continue to come up with unnecessary issues to make this space ungovernable.
Yeah,
so this is arguable, but it's sometimes one of the hindrances of development.
Yeah, or maybe not, because, Kausu, that is inherent in democracy. Everyone has your opinion, all right? And we belong to different parties. So the fact that somebody is elected doesn't necessarily mean, therefore, we all need to come around that person.
Yes.
Yeah, because somebody did not vote for that person, is not from that other party, and so on. And some people do not agree with the agenda, with the promise of this person who has come to office. All right, but then without election, what do we have to identify or to elect this person into office? The fact that we've elected you also, apart from all other things, it is for us not necessarily, maybe that it's part of it, but it is for us to hold that person to account, to monitor, to track that, elected official and the institutions to make sure they are always on their toes. Yeah. All right. So sometimes in the Gambia, I hear people say after election, political bandale sign, politics be jehna. All right, the politics is over. Now it's national development. Now, which I think is a misconception, because politics can never be over. All right. If they meant to say politics over in the sense that elections are over, we should, I don't know, rally behind this person. You know, one would raise the question as to what do you mean rally behind the person? Because for me, if you are elected today as president or parliamentarian, rallying behind you to me means holding you to account.
Absolutely.
Checking you.
That is what it meant.
Yeah.
But it doesn't also mean distracting.
Well, so that is a matter of opinion, because for somebody holding you to account, somebody who's Maridal is giving Kausu a problem, is distracting Kausu. All right, but then, I mean, maybe for Maria and somebody else, it's like we need to monitor Kausu because he's going off track. And somebody thinks, no, you are doing a good job. I mean, like, you look at Barrow right now. Yes. I mean, I raised a lot of issues about Barrow, all right, and others also raised issues either in support of or in opposition to him. Yes. Because is he taking the country in the right direction? It's a matter of opinion. It's a matter of debate. So that somebody like me, I don't think so, but somebody else may think, oh no, Barrow is doing wonderfully well.
Absolutely.
And but democracy gives us the ability, this space for that person to clap for Barrow as much as he can, but for me also and others to also, shout against him as much as we can. So that at the end of the day, we all see. And then, which has a lot of benefits because one, it helps to maintain peace. Yes, it helps to maintain peace. It helps to expose, what is right or wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, because, whatever you say, for or against, the facts will come out. So that, yes, we can deny the facts, we can dispute the facts, but then things will come out. And to say, well, I mean, who is right or wrong?
In one of my analysis, when we were talking about development, I said it's a process that cannot take place in a vacuum. However, like, example now, if you want to use this water bottle, which is very transparent, if I said it is halfway full, I am right. If you said it is halfway empty, you are right. Yeah. But now, if a good number of people keep saying this is empty, people tend to, like what they call perception and reality. Because perception tends to convince more than reality. So do you think getting elections every 5 years would, as a country, for the Gambia, would that help us achieve our set goals as a growing country? Or this will continue to derail us? Because 60 years of independence, there are things that we cannot do. Like, if you look at Gambia, we cannot even make a match of our own as a country. So many people will tell you, because once you are elected, people tend to argue or concentrate more on the negative vibes than the positive vibes.
Yeah. So one can raise the question, therefore, if we don't elect through election, how do we now get a president or a parliamentarian or a mayor or a councillor? All right, number one. Number two, election by itself every 5 years poses no barrier for a president forming his government and to do the right thing. And we have seen elections in other places, which use the democratic path, and they have grown to become advanced, successful, prosperous countries. All right. So, therefore, for me, elections are not a problem. All right. I mean, Jawara was elected every 5 years, 30 years. He had all the opportunity, to build this country. All right.
As well, there were so many oppositions.
Yeah, but the opposition did not prevent him to do the right thing. All right. So just a few days ago, I saw a picture of Kuntau rice mill, all right, which was there during Jawara's time, and it is now run down. They came and abandoned it, and it is still abandoned under Barrow and so on. And I use that as one example of many initiatives that started, very good initiatives during Sadaro's time, that we just run down through corruption, negligence, incompetence, which is not the fault of the opposition or the fault of elections. It's simply because elected officials, right, appointed officials, refusing to perform their task. Because these are institutions you set up. It's like during Jammeh's time, I was talking in another show about corruption in the Gambia. All right, and good governance. And I told them, I said, interestingly, all of the important institutions for good governance, for accountability, to prevent corruption were established under Jammeh's time. It was under Jammeh we had IEC.
Yeah.
It was under Jammeh we had Ombudsman. You know, we had PURA. I mean, the Competition Commission, we have them. We have GRA. All right. I mean, you know, you have. We even had an Anti-Corruption Act in 2013, and then many other laws. The DPP, Director of Public Prosecutions. Yes. So I mean, we had so many important institutions of governance and development under Jammeh. But by 2016, when he left, you know, he left the country poorer than it was in 1994. He left the country indebted. More indebted than in 1994. All right. He left the country with, you know, deprivation. I mean, the backway syndrome, you know, came during his time. All right. Lack of opportunities, I mean, among the youth and so on, than in 1994. But the opposition did not prevent Jammeh from making those institutions perform. You know, the elections did not prevent him to do that. So,
it's
we don't have a
arguable,
problem.
Uncle Madi. The reason why I said it's arguable, if like I am into some corruption scandal, and they know I have a place.
In fact, I forgot the Auditor General, Office of the Auditor General, the National Audit Office, was established under Jammeh's time.
Now that, okay,
You know,
if there are so many issues about corruption allegations and stuff, and they know that I had probably 20,000 votes, sometimes they will not look at the crime that I have committed, because the objective of election, of people that are elected into office, is to be re-elected. So if they know, okay, Council had 20,000 votes somewhere in Penyam, and then I've entered into something, and they know probably moving me out would actually create a room for those people to shift allegiance to another party. What do you think, if any politician is in that situation, is what they will do? Because we've seen this from across the board, from the central level to the regional level, down to the local government level, or to the ward level. That sometimes, even when it comes to anti-littering, you call your ward councillor, he will tell you, no, hangaman munuma yobunyini, because they put me into office. And these are things you hear and see every day. So don't you think the issue of election on every 5 years itself is even what is derailing our development?
Well, unless I see a better alternative, but I don't think so. All right. Indeed, these are problems. So that one, as I said, we are human beings, and we can be dishonest. We can be selfish, and just as we can be, you know, honest and selfless. But also, democracy requires informed citizenry.
Absolutely.
All right. And again, thanks to Jammeh, we had NCCE in this country. All right. So, democracy requires informed citizenry, so that if the citizens are informed, maybe that kind of councillor or elected official in the first place would not be elected. You know, much more to think about how do I manipulate elections, you know. And elections, again, you know, I told about IEC, you know, it came through Jammeh, but the elections law itself, during Jawara's time, you didn't have any electoral law, because election was conducted by the permanent secretary, it was like the IEC chief chairman, Minister of, I think, local government.
It was, no, I guess, Ministry of Interior.
Yeah, you know, local government. One of them used to be the chief electoral officer. Now, we had an election decree in 1996, all right, and which they have now reviewed today, and it has factored all of those issues there, electoral malpractices, all right. Even though, interestingly, Jammeh was notorious for electoral malpractices. You know, Jammeh is a man of contradictions, you know. So, democracy would require informed citizenry. You know, so that you deal with some of these things you are talking about. But also the laws are there, because democracy also envisages that you and me can engage in a lot of, you know, fraudulent things.
Absolutely.
And so there has to be safeguards. And that's why there's an electoral law and other laws to prevent those safeguards. Because just as there are, you know, malpractices by politicians, you know, it's like there are armed robbers.
Absolutely.
You know, there are burglars, you know, who would go and, you know, so also there are, you know, armed robbers in offices as well. Using
and they're pen robbers.
Yeah, you can say so. So I mean, but unless if there is an alternative, yes, but I don't think election in itself has a problem.
Okay, finally on elections, should everybody vote? Because also, like, we know we elect representative in different categories, ranging from the ward or ward councillors to constituency chairpersons or constituency representatives. That is the National Assembly. Then you have the chairpersons, the mayors, and then to the president. Very fantastic system. However, if we can entrust the National Assembly to be responsible for the review of our budget, and then we believe we put them based on competence, but we cannot allow them to elect for our presidents. Going back, like you've mentioned in the olden days, the CFO used to elect on behalf of his people. I don't want to use the word subject, but on behalf of the people that he or she governs. And that was the system, and it was also election. Now that, okay, we have grown as a nation, everybody wants to vote simply because you are 18, because you are Gambian, because you have the voter registration, and you are of age and of a sound mind. But even this sound mind is not properly defined, because our understanding is if the person is not insane. But do we understand what we are voting for? Do we understand whom we are voting for? Do we even listen to their manifestos? Some people would get up on the election day, just go and vote. They cannot even tell you one thing about the person they are going to vote for, based on manifestos, based on programs and policies. So everybody vote, Uncle Madi.
Yeah, so yes, everybody should vote, and I'll come to that bit. But let me say that when we say democracy, you know, it also implies active citizenship, citizen participation. It also implies, citizen participation. But when you say that citizen, a citizen for me is someone who is aware, informed of his or her rights and duties, and determined to exercise them. For me, that is the ideal citizen. So all of the things we are talking about, it is the right of the citizen to hear all the political contenders, but it is also the duty of the citizen to know all the political contenders and what they are saying or not. So it is not an excuse for any citizen to say, I don't know the issues this candidate is raising or what this party represents. Everybody should follow, you know, as a citizen, as your duty, as your right and duty to follow that. Now, right now, election is for anyone above 18 years. 18 and above, and as you said, sound mind, all right, and not convicted in prison, and apparently also you are not outside, you are in the Gambia. So I think our elections is very restricted. All right?
Seriously?
Yeah, so I think during Jammeh's time, or maybe, during, before Jawara's time, the voting age was 21.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's reduced to 18. I think it should go to 16.
Why 16?
Yeah, because I think a person of 16, has the mental capability to understand his or her environment, and has reached a certain level of responsibility, even it is for himself, in society, such that a matter like electing those who will manage affairs of society, that person should have a say there. So for me, the voting age is at 18 now. If I have my way, I'll take it down to 16.
We are but also, and we are having a problem, Uncle Madi, of decision making. People will tell you, Kariko.
But you realize that an 86-year-old man or woman is making bad judgment, just like somebody, even worse than somebody at 16 or even 18 years.
No, but in our families, if you're 18, you're still considered a child.
Yeah, no. Even if you are 34, you are considered a child. It depends on who you are talking to. So that aspect, put that aside. They will consider. I fight with my mom all the time. I'm like, you perceive me to be 5 years old. I mean, it's like she's not aware that I'm at this point. But I think voting age should be reduced. I think prisoners should vote, and Gambians in the diaspora should vote as well. Now, the sound mind thing, I think, basically, you are mentally, I guess, balanced. Now, that is not to say you have good judgment or poor judgment. Absolutely. Because, again, it's about people's capacity, in terms of knowledge, in terms of information they have, their ability to analyze and so on. As opposed to somebody really having a mental health issue, all right, and probably institutionalized or so, and normally such a person may not even come to seek for a voter's card. Absolutely. But for me, anyone who walks down, even if we assume this man is mentally imbalanced, but if he comes down to, with his, birth certificate or her birth certificate, the requirements, ID card, to come to the voter registration center to register, he should be allowed to register. We should just say, but we know him to be mentally...
Absolutely.
But the fact that he came to decide to come to register, I think he should be provided that right to register.
Let's look at the issue of age first. I will agree, diaspora, people that are in prison, to a certain degree, yes. But, Uncle Madi, you've mentioned that. Prior to 1996, it was at the age of 21. Now that it is 18, we have seen people that cannot even make decisions, holding their voter's card and joining the queue. We've seen people who, a night before, people will tell you, if you go look at this box and then make sure you put it there. Because we believe 18 years is that person. I mean, entirely somebody is taking care of that person.
So you can look at it from that point of view, but you can look at it another point of view. You have an adult, some 60-year-old man, for example, at home, tell his wife, vote for that candidate, vote for this party. Tell his children, vote for that party. For me, that 60-year-old man is no better than the ones you think cannot make decisions on their own, like the 16. Because if you understand the concept of democracy and elections, why should you tell even your wife, your child, where to vote for? Because that undermines it contradicts the very concept of democracy, of election. So, but you can see that happens. I've had those stories, and I know.
I've witnessed divorce as a result of election. And the person perceived, the person voted for another.
So where that is the case, therefore, I think what we need to look at is, at the bare minimum, all right, people are maybe at different levels of maturity and so on, but at the bare minimum, where can we put the cutoff mark so that we get as many citizens as possible? Because that's also a matter of legitimacy and representation. So that if you bring it down to 16, it means we have opened the space for many more Gambians to participate in that decision making, which is about the very destiny, the very life of the whole country today and tomorrow. So for me, to the greatest extent possible, we should allow more Gambians to go and vote. And so if that requires, in my case, in my opinion, that would require that we voting age from 18 to 16, because a 16-year-old person, I think, has the mental capability to gather information, to receive information, to analyze information, and to be able to determine his or her best interests and the best interests of society. To, at least in terms of what political parties or candidates represent or promise, to be able to analyze that. And for me, it is also a matter of encouraging our citizens from very early on to become interested in national affairs, to demonstrate citizenship, from that early on. And not just that last point, not just to reduce it at 18.
From 18 to 16, like you
from 16 to 18, but I would even want to make election mandatory. All right, that everyone, it's an obligation that you vote.
Once you are registered.
Once you are registered, that you should vote, because it is so important that everyone votes.
Let me ask this agreeable question. Someone said he wishes election could be mandatory, but there's also going to be a box or option whereby if among all the candidates none is satisfactory, you can say none. What's your take on that?
I would buy that. Because I have faced those situations in elections in the Gambia, having no confidence in any of the candidates, and then took a sort of negative analysis. Okay, I don't have any confidence in this, but then can I vote for this other candidate? All right,
with less harm.
Maybe less harm, or maybe reduce votes from there, and so on. So but I think we should have a choice. That choice to say, look, I don't have confidence in any of these candidates, and which for me would be also very significant, because at the end of the day, that should also come out, so that percentage would also tell us public trust and confidence in the political system, in the candidates, in our politics. And that may be a matter of policy to address, a matter of program, a development agenda to address. Okay. Because when most citizens don't have confidence in their candidates, in their political parties, or in the system, I think that is a national security issue as well, that we need to look at, interrogate as to why this is the case. Yeah.
Political systems is key. And this, like how I call them, political parties are government in waiting for those in the opposition. But our political system itself, many will argue that it's something that needs a review. Some would say it needs a proper reform. Yeah. But some also believe it is in a perfect state. Among all the three possibilities, what's your perception when it comes to, do we need to reform it? Is it in a perfect space, space? Or is something that absolutely we just need to redraw and then come up with fresh ideologies?
Okay, so I think we need reform. I mean, redrawing and so on. So I think our politicals, I think I just raised some of those issues in terms of voting age and so on. But in terms of our political parties, political representation, I think we need to look at that. I've written and spoken extensively about political parties, that until now, our political parties are not operating like true political parties in a democratic dispensation, simply because they are undemocratic. They are usually in the control, in the dominated by one man, or usually, or few people. The parties lack internal governance, democratic practices. All right, they don't have a lot of the structures that they should have. The parties are not institutionalized. I mean, you look at most of our parties. I mean, the way they are structured, they've not become that kind of entity, knowledge-based, evidence-based. National institutions, which they should be. All right. So I have a lot of problems with our political parties. I think, they are precisely the reason also why the country could not, transform since independence. Because I believe we cannot have good governance at the national level if there's no good governance in the political parties.
Absolutely.
I mean, right now we all come to realize, look, we need term limits, for example. I mean, you look at our political parties, they don't have term limits down there. And
most of them. Because I've interviewed one, the NUP, which said it has that.
Well, fine. I mean, NSF is one of the newest parties. Maybe they will learn lessons. And, those things may happen. But, you realize that the running of these parties, even some of them may claim to have, if you realize the party remains mainly dominated by one person and so on. There are other aspects of democracy, of good governance, representation, so how inclusive are our parties, so that it really represents that society. So I think the parties need serious reforms, and then institutionally, in terms of the politics, I mean, I think, again, that inclusion needs to be replicated at the national level. Yeah, so that if you look at our National Assembly, for example, it's a very restricted house. Which should,
very restricted?
Yeah, because it's not inclusive. So that when you look at the National Assembly, or inclusive enough, as we speak right now, there is no Christian in our National Assembly. There is no Manjago there. There is no Aku there. There is no Karuninka there. There is no person with disabilities in the National Assembly. All right.
Among the nominees?
Among the nominees, yes. Among the elected, you don't have these five categories.
Because with election, it's about influence.
Yes. So that, why is there no Christian, all right, and Manjago?
Probably they didn't vie.
Yeah, so that is the issue, because one could say, and then you have only three elected women and 2 nominated women.
With women, I might say yes, because that is about gender. If we are Gambians, I believe once we talk about Gambian, tribe, ethnicity shouldn't surface.
Well, it depends on what you mean surface. But the fact of the matter is, democracy as a rights-based idea and ideal and of course system recognizes diversity, which is a right, and and for inclusion, so that deliberate effort should be made that the institutions that we create, the national institutions we create, like political parties, like presidency, like parliament, like councils, and so on, the cabinet, and so on, should also reflect the diversity of society. And it cannot be said here, but we did not ask any Christian to not to stand, or any Wolof not to stand, or any Mandinka not to stand, or any woman not to stand. Particularly in our context, you come to realize that like in many other societies, some groups, because of their minorities or for other reasons, have been marginalized, or did not have the space, somehow have been left out. So that what can be done, let's say at the level of political parties,
yes,
that look, we are a political party of the Gambia, and everybody votes for the political party because women vote, and are the largest number of voters. Christians vote, the Manjago vote, the Aku, the Karoninka, the Mankanj, they all vote for these political parties and these candidates. So if you are a political party, you are a national institution, you are a national leader, so that you have to come to the understanding, to that realization, look, our party should promote that one Gambia we talk about, that we are all equal. So can we take a deliberate step to say, look, we are going to make sure through our nominations we put forward other minority groups, so that that sense of belonging, also that ownership, that participation is across the board. Otherwise, those who form the majority would easily just go and...
But Uncle Madi, putting them on board doesn't mean winning. I know of Nene Frida, who has run for election. That doesn't mean she wins. But if you look at all what you've mentioned, she falls under one of those categories. But she didn't win. So even if, like, all the political parties put up women to say, okay, we are going to put up 35 women in various constituencies, and then they might not end up winning. I know of GDC, when it comes to the 2018 local government elections, they've tried putting up a good number of women. However, how many of them won?
So two or three things. One, to do that. So GDC needs commendation for that. Then I don't know which party put out.
CA.
Right. So they need commendation for that. So that step has to be taken by the political parties. But the other step is also to fight for that person to win the election. Another step is the civic education. All right. Has to be also provided. National Council for Civic Education, civil society, the political parties themselves, that is need to do that civic education also to promote the idea of diversity and inclusion. All right. So, those have to be deliberate policies, actions that have to be done. The desired result may not come automatically. All right. But and that's an aspect of it. Is put it into policy or law, quotas, to say, look, Parliament, this number of seats will be reserved for women or certain minorities, persons with disabilities at the council's level, and so on. All right, the political parties themselves also can have a policy or a bylaw to say, look, our nominees for National Assembly will be 50-50, we'll go for gender parity, and so on. So some effort has to be made. Otherwise, how are we going to overcome this barrier?
I remember when we were advocating for not too young to run. I said, that does it mean we will be elected in office?
Exactly. But then it was a great initiative to have an idea like that. But then, yes.
But it has reflected. It was not in 2017, but if you look at most of the people that yearned for the position in 2017 and lost it at the National Assembly, a good number of them had been re-elected or elected in 2022.
Exactly.
So initiation, people must initiate something and then believe in it and advocate towards it. Still on political party systems, you've talked about the issue of two-term limits, which is a very good. We have had people, even in the opposition, talked about there is need for that to be respected at the national level. But even at party level, they don't want to observe it, not to talk of honor it. So is this also not going to be a threat for people to even introduce a term limit at the national level? Because if we cannot introduce it at the grassroots level, at our party level, which is a smaller representative, which is a smaller people, how can we, when it gets to the national level?
So I think at the beginning I was just saying, democracy also is about the people. And when you say the people, you and me, what do you want? What do I want? What are my fears and concerns? and interests? Am I honest enough? I mean, or not? Am I selfless or selfish? And so many things. All right. And because of that human nature of it, so democracy has challenges. Absolutely. All right. And I guess that is why the idea of term limit also came about in certain countries, because it's also about history and experience. Yeah. If you UK, France, and so on, they don't have term limits. But if you have the US, for example, they have a term limit. And a lot of countries, in other parts of the world, South America, Africa, Asia. Why? Because of experience, their history. All right, because the U.S. They did not start with a term limit. Yeah. It was over time that a practice became a law, and we have enough experience, all right, in our history that we should not even debate about term limit, both in terms of the political party and in terms of the nation, the government. So, but again, will people accept it? So I've seen political party operatives talking about this term limit issue and trying to say, but it doesn't apply to political parties.
Why?
Yes, I think it's a baseless argument.
Absolutely.
I think, as you said, political parties are governments. They are either ruling or waiting. All right. So for me, a political party should reflect the structure, the ideal of government, the nature of government. All right. If you go to certain countries, in fact, like UK, political parties have shadow cabinets. Yeah. They have a cabinet, and they are not even in power because a political party is a government. Absolutely. So it should not just come with those kind of positions, but it should also come with those kind of standards. So that term limits, quotas, gender quotas for minorities should all be down there. Transparency and accountability should exist in political parties. All right, they should have necessary structures and processes, to make sure good governance prevails within political parties. So, but again, we are dealing with human beings, and you can see how their, nature impacts on democracy, because the democracy is there as an ideal, which I think is fine. But then it is implemented by you and me, sometimes, we want to go east or west, but if you look at our history and experience, look at all our political parties from the days of PPP, and before, in parties led by P.S. Njai, parties led by Gaba Chahumpo, Reverend JC5. It's our parties. They led those parties until their demise, or when the parties dissolved somehow, absorbed into PPP. Jawara was there. I mean, all these years, and since then you have all these parties.
You're reminding me of the current argument of the APRC and the real APRC.
And now you have even APRC, and even though the leader is not here, you just still cannot, because ultimately the party is owned by these people.
No, but parties are not, parties are institutions, they are not individual ownership.
Supposed to be. I mean, they're supposed to be institutions. In the Gambia, our parties are yet to be institutions. Yes, there are still some kind of cult in the hands of, their respective leaders, and of course, who have cronies around them. Yeah. And, so in the end, you practically cannot,
they make them political godfathers.
Yeah, you cannot just move the parties in the way they should be,
We have 3 administrations politically elected, from Sadauda to former President Jammeh to current President Adama Barrow. What one of the major campaigns that they made, or most of the people will tell you, if they are out of government, the Public Order Act is bad, the Public Order Act is bad, the Public Order Act is bad. But once they are in office, they tend to ignore. Yeah. But arguably, people will tell you, the Constitution, which is 1997 Constitution, has provided the right for people to assemble and peaceful protest. However, there are clauses that will also tell the people that for you to do this, you must apply X, Y, and Z. But a good number of Gambians believe the Public Order Act needs to be repealed or amended. Would you take it to be, or would you consider the 5th Legislative as the institution responsible for strengthening the Public Order Act in the Gambia still? The reason why I said so is, in 2016, the late Solo Sanden and Co. went out and protest for reform. Yeah. One of the reforms was the Electoral Act, but the other issues that they believe was wrong was the Public Order Act beyond the electoral reforms. our expectation or expectations of many Gambians was the fifth legislative was supposed to remove it, not the police. But we've seen people who were in the fifth legislative up to date blaming the police for brutality when they could have changed the law, because the law is there to be enforced.
Yeah. So the Public Order Act needs to be reformed. All right, and Barrow said this in his manifesto 2016. The coalition parties said this in the MOU in 2016. They said 6 months after coming to power, within 6 months, they will repeal all laws that infringe on human rights, popular participation, and democracy. These are the three things. It's in Barrow's manifesto. People need to go and look at Barrow's manifesto. It's a very good written, well-written document with action points, you know, achievable action points, which, if that were implemented, we would have the system change we are talking about. Yeah. And they said within 6 months, and they listed the laws and constitutional provisions and so on, and among them the Public Order Act is one of them. I know since 2017, you know, I was at Tango. We had, you know, done a lot of advocacy to reform the Public Order Act. We had, you know, workshops, seminars with National Assembly, the police, you know, Ministry of Justice, and of course our civil society and political parties to no avail. The fundamental issue with the Public Order Act is that, you know, in public order laws, they have two kinds of regimes. They have what they call the authorization regime and the notification regime. The notification regime is that it recognizes that citizens have a right to protest.
Absolutely.
But of course, security is important, law enforcement is important to maintain law and order. And so to do this protest, for the interest of the protesters, the rest of society, and so on, you need to notify the police.
Absolutely.
All right, within a reasonable time. If you go to UK, for example, in the Public Order Act, it gives you 6 days to notify the police. If you go to Ghana, in the Public Order Act, it gives you 5 days to notify the police before the protest, and which is fine, because all what is important is the police to be aware so that they provide necessary security.
Security of the protesters and security of also the other road users.
Or you know, road, everyone else, right? So that notification is rooted in the understanding, in the concept of freedom of assembly, which is an entrenched constitutional right in the Gambia Constitution, like in many other constitutions. Now, what has happened with the Public Order Act is that it creates an authorization regime. That is, it is now the IG who will authorize to say you can protest or not to protest. So that in the Public Order Act, you know, Section 5, Section 6, you realize that the IG does not need to give you any reason. It says as he deems fit. Now that is practically making the IG Gambia like the king of above the Constitution, because the Constitution.
No, but he's the security chief.
Yes, but he is not the king of the Gambia.
Their role is to protect life and properties.
Yes, but not at the detriment of the Constitution and fundamental rights. All right. So that, you know, is one issue. No, number two, before even we talk about that, let's talk about the first point. And the first point is the Constitution has recognized freedom of expression as an entrenched right.
Absolutely.
In the Section 25. Now, Council, the thing about Constitution is that it says a lot of things, and then it provides for subsidiary law to come and further elaborate on that. We just talked about elections.
Yes.
Before we talk about the Election Act, first of all, the Constitution talks about the right to vote, you know, Section 26.
To vote and to be voted for.
Yeah, and then Section 39, it talks about the right to register. So the Elections Act, whatever it is rooted in Section 26 and Section 39.
Yes.
Those are its pillars. So whatever you write in the you know, in the Election Act, you write anything you want to write there, but you know, based on Section 26 and Section 39.
Yes.
If you come to, let's say, freedom of expression, you look at the criminal code. You have sections, you know, Section 15 about sedition, Section 107 about false information to a public officer. So what happens is the Constitution provides your rights, but another law goes there now to define, you know, set the parameters for the enjoyment, the exercise of those rights, or actions that would violate those rights. So the Elections Act is there, the Information and Communications Act is there, the Criminal Code is there, the Public Order Act is there. So that in the Public Order Act, it recognizes Section 25, because the Public Order Act is rooted in Section 25,
Absolutely.
which recognizes the freedom to assemble peacefully without the use of arms.
Yes.
But what did the Public Order Act say? It says, therefore, in enjoying this freedom of assembly, if it involves two things, then request a permit.
Absolutely.
It wrote it there. It is there. It is written there.
Yeah. And that is?
And that is, if you are going on a procession, if an assembly involves a procession in a public place, you need a permit.
Okay.
Number two, if that assembly, even if you are not going on a procession, but you are just stationing in one public place, but you are going to use a public address system, you need a permit.
Okay.
So if we want to assemble and we want to climb a mango tree, 10 of us, because assembly is at least 2 people or more. So if 10 of us want to assemble on top of a mango tree, the Public Order Act did not say anything about that. We will not request a permit. And the IG cannot tell us, come down from the mango tree because you don't have permit. No, because the law has not specified that, has not talked about that. It identified only 2 things. If they are involved in a public assembly, then you need a permit. Now, our problem is lack of political will at the political, lack of will, or let's say political will at the level of the political leadership and at the level of security leadership. So that the IGP is illegally and unnecessarily extending the Public Order Act beyond its limits. So that if...
Why would you say it is he or she is extending beyond the legal limits?
Because we have public assemblies,
yes,
like the one we had in front of Pura on August 22,
yes,
to deny, to say people should disperse because they did not have a permit. Even though the organizers told the police, look, we don't need a permit. We are assembling, yes, it's a public space, but we are not using a loudspeaker and we are not on a procession. We are just assembling here. We are just coming and assemble here.
But how would you get to that place?
I'll take a taxi or walk from my home to Pura.
And
that's another procession.
Yes.
Yeah, the procession would be if we stand at Pura now, we've assembled, and we say we will walk down Karaba Avenue and go to to the next street to where Africell is, for example.
Yes.
You can say, okay, you have moved.
Yes.
But certainly, when nobody lives in front of Pura, it's
but
a
people
public
walk
space.
there.
Yeah, I know. People
And
walk there.
obstruction is also a violation.
Yes, but again, it doesn't necessarily mean there was obstruction, because the that protest, like many others, the organizers are well organized. In fact, on that particular day, Pura, envisaging what would come that morning, in their front is like a car park. They cleared all their vehicles, so it's like Pura was ready to receive.
Was that not a threat, Uncle Madi?
No, it's not a threat.
Of course, Uncle Madi. No, I come to work. I normally park where I park.
Yeah.
Envisaging that people might come to this spiritual protest, I transferred where I park to another place.
Yeah.
That is even a threat.
No.
Emotionally.
Pura is just exercising responsibility for that particular act and respecting the rights of people, that these people come to protest here. This is their right to do so. So we will give them space. So Pura, for that part, we commend them for giving that space to the protesters. Yeah. So what the IGP needed to do, because the Public Order Act is not also very much in favor of the IGP and even the protesters, because the law could have said, Section 5, for example, and Section 6, could have gone to say further, okay, if you want to do an assembly, all right, no procession, no PA system, but notify the IG, 24 hours before, 72 hours before, 6 days before that you will be doing this.
Yes.
So if that happens, I'm sure people would have notified. So that in the UK law, for example, or in the Ghana law and other laws, even if you fail to notify the police within the stipulated time, it says it is not an offense if you can give a reasonable explanation.
Okay.
All right. So I remember on that day, early morning, because the protest, just before I left, when I woke up, before I left my home, 7 a.m., it just occurred to me. I sent a text message to the police PRO to say, we are going to assemble here. Because I'm thinking in terms of how protests...
But this is not Ghana. Huh? But this is not Ghana, Uncle Madi.
Yeah, I know, but I think as a best practice, and to give them their due regard as the police and to maintain law and order, I mean, as a responsible citizen, I felt it is important to just share that information with the police to know that, So my expectation was, well, if the police PRO got it, the IGP will get it, and so-called operational commanders and so on, they will come, and they should come, but then they just sit there or stand there, whatever, and watch over. You're right. Anyone who wants to break peace, they deal with that person. All right. But they did not do that. So that's why I said the IGP is illegally and unnecessarily extending the Public Order Act to a level it has not arrived at. Okay. And so I hope the IGP will limit himself to the law and not go outside of it, which has been the case.
Still, we would look at where the whole question started. It was the 5th legislative. Yeah. This was the presidential campaign. Okay. This was what the coalition promised people. Yeah. Out of 53 constituencies, one of the candidates was independent, 5 from the APRC, and 5 from the GDC. All the 42 were members of the coalition. Yeah. Still, they didn't come up to make the reform. Yeah. So I think. So was that a priority for them? No. And why should we blame the police for the people we put in office in the 5th legislative having an absolute majority, not acting on what a campaign pledge or promise was?
Yeah, so we can separate things. The police have been blamed for violating the law. Okay. As I said, they are extending the Public Order Act where it is not. All right, people have requested for permit and they give permit. That is where they should stop. But where it is just an assemble without the conditions set out in the Public Order Act, they should not therefore take the matter beyond. So that is the police. Now, in terms of leaders, and that's why I said there is in the political will at 2 levels, at the political leadership, and that is the president, the presidency, and the legislature, the executive and the legislature. And I can take it further to say the political parties, these 3. Okay. Now, they failed. Especially that 5th legislature, they failed governments. If you recall, when Solo Sanden's burial was to take place, I gave an interview to say the coalition leaders betrayed Solo Sanden. All right. And one of them, Halifa Sallah, challenged me to a debate on West Coast Radio. You may have heard of that. Yeah. All right. Why? Because before I talk about the public order, if you allow me, let's talk about the election. Okay. Now, in 2012, UDP, DOI, NRP, GPDP, yes, GMC, and PPP, 6 of them, constituted themselves into a coalition called the Gambia Opposition for Electoral Reforms, GOFA. Yeah. By 2015, they submitted about 14-point demand to the president, Jammeh at the time, and copied to the IEC, Jesse Jackson, I think the UN, maybe ECOWAS too, and so on, other stakeholders. And in that 14-point proposal, they have talked about diaspora voting. They talked about that the diaspora should vote. They talked about term limits. They talked about force past the post, 50% majority. They talked about the removal of attestation. All right. They're listed.
What they thought then was a problem.
At the time.
Was a problem.
It was a problem, the reform that we need to do. They submitted it. Okay. Only for us to see in 2015, of course, Jammeh raised the deposit to $1 million and so on. All right. Then we got to 2016. Solo Sandeng and compatriots protested for electoral reforms. And because of that, he was arrested, and they were arrested, he was tortured to death, others were subjected to all forms of, gruesome violations. And that was what galvanized, the struggle further to what we came to have eventually in December 2016, removal of Jammeh. So that when that is the case, and bearing in mind, when that coalition came together, or these political parties, they came together, and 2016, in that coalition MOU, they listed what changes need to happen in this country. Absolutely. All right, term limits are there and so on. The Public Order Act, the Officer Secrets Act, the Criminal Code, the Indemnity Act, all the things they need to change and remove. So they said it. Now, 2016, it is these very coalition leaders or political parties who were elected, and they took charge of the executive and the legislature.
Absolutely.
Some were ministers in the cabinet. One of them is president. Then they have some ministers in the cabinet. They have some that are in members of parliament, in the National Assembly. So they had full control
Absolutely.
of the governance of this country through the legislature and the executive. So they had no reason whatsoever to bring the necessary constitutional and legal reforms that were supposed to be done. And we've seen evidence of that, because early on they did constitutional reform to change age limits for president.
The upper age.
The upper age, and so on. So why did they touch the Public Order Act?
That was not their priority.
That wasn't their priority.
They didn't bring the issue of 50 plus. They didn't bring
everything.
the issue of term limits.
Everything.
And this were the campaign promises they made.
So for me, this is significant, because I remember meeting the speaker at the time in her office, Mariam Denton Jack. Okay. And I told her, and I have told this to practically every parliamentarian in the 5th legislature, to say this 5th legislature is what will make or break the Gambia.
Absolutely.
Because this 5th legislature, this is the bridge between dictatorship and the democracy we need to build, the good governance we need to build. So if you fail to do that in this 5th legislature, the next legislature and on, this country would be in a mess. All right? And there's no parliamentarian I have not gone to speak to send a message on WhatsApp. Almost every parliamentary, bill or any bill that comes by, I will write a position paper, my personal position paper, and submit it to them personally. All right. But they failed us. And this is why we still have the Public Order Act here and all the mess that is in this country. The failure is that 5th legislature.
Still on the issue of political systems and leadership. Considering all these challenges, why should Gambians, as per most Gambians, have trust in the political system of the country?
Well, this is a critical question, and it cannot be answered straightforward.
Okay.
There is the political system, and then there are the political actors. All right. I think we should have trust in our National Assembly. I think we should have trust in our presidency as an institution. All right. We should have trust in our constitution as the law, supreme law of the land, and all the other institutions. We should have trust in them.
Okay. As institutions.
As institutions, as laws. But then these institutions are occupied and run by individuals, political actors. And I think our tragedy in this country is that the political actors are the ones betraying our institutions and laws, to the point that we sometimes say, National Assembly this. Because what I'm just trying to do is to separate the institution from the individuals. Yes.
And these individuals represent us in the institutions.
And
they are the ones doing the act.
And then eventually the institution becomes, a disappointment.
Uncle Madi, if I am driving a car, at that time I am the driver.
Yeah.
So if people cannot get confidence in me as a driver, then it's obvious the driver. So it's not the person, because the person is occupying them. The institutions itself, like what one point in time Barack Obama said, Africa don't have a problem of institution, it has a problem of leadership.
Yeah, we don't need strong men. Strong men, you need strong institutions.
Yes. We put up the institutions, but the people that occupy the institutions use the institutions to defend the wrong they do.
Yeah, so that, inevitably, it leads to people losing confidence in, because does not talk, does not breathe. It's not somebody out there. It is, we who come to occupy the institution, and our conduct will determine whether we will have confidence in that institution or not. And it is sad to say, indeed, that the actors, in those institutions, have been failing this country, woefully. And that is very sad. But then, even there, citizens should not lose confidence in those institutions. Rather, what that should teach us is to reposition ourselves to realize that, look, at the end of the day, these institutions are about our lives and our destiny and our future. So that we are not going to be frustrated or discouraged, because whether we engage or disengage, those institutions impact on our lives.
Absolutely.
The cost of bread, the cost of water, electricity, security,
Fuel,
opportunity, fuel is determined by the executive and the legislature. Forget about what businesses do, what happening in the middle of Sarakunda market, or what a market woman is doing. At the end of the day, that price is coming from the executive and the legislature. So that if we realize that, then it means we cannot afford to lose trust in them.
Okay.
Yes, we can disagree with them, and we will criticize and condemn them and expose their corruption and inefficiency and incompetence, but we should engage them. Okay. And that is why these protests are so important. We can engage in many, many ways, but one of the best ways is to protest against them. So Gambians need to come out in the streets all the time, need to go in front of public buildings like the National Assembly, Office of the President, State House, in front of KMC, of Brikama Area Council, Basse Area Council. Everywhere there are public institutions, to go and manifest to them that, look, you are not performing.
But they
are
have
not doing
laws
your
that
job.
are protecting them.
Yeah.
And the laws are there to protect them. And that is why I said, because those laws are also made by the same institutions.
No. The laws are not, the laws are not necessarily protecting them from us holding them to account.
No.
It is just the police, in this case, abusing the law. So that if citizens want to go and stand in front of State House today, to stand there and show their disagreement, they are not violating any law. And no law says you cannot do that. All right? Rather, the law says you can do that. The Constitution says you can do that, to assemble peaceably without the use of arms. And so long as you are not in a procession or using a peer system, all the police got to do is to come and watch you people over, standing in front of State House.
Okay. We would look at something very critical, current status of the country. You see different reports. People will tell you Gambia's status has increased economically. Our GDP has moved from point A to point B. Our investment has grown from this point to this point. We had fantastic highways. Electricity has been increased. But still, some people will tell you this is not reflecting in the life and livelihood of the ordinary citizens. People will tell you rent has skyrocketed from point A to this. Both sides. But like I said in the beginning, it's just development. Whether you said it is halfway full or halfway empty. Uncle Madi, what's your take on the current status of the country?
I think the current status is very precarious, very serious. You see, Council, the building of roads did not start in 2017.
Yes.
Between 1994 and 2017, 2016, Jammeh built roads unprecedented in this country. And not just roads, but institutions. I listed some of them.
Yes.
Things we'll consider development, electricity, took it to a level that it wasn't there, under Jawara. But even Jawara, from 1965 to 1994, has also extended things, created things that were not there during the colonial period. And tomorrow, if you become president, you will continue to build schools and hospitals and roads, just as they are building roads in America today. In Sweden, they are still building hospitals. I understand, as advanced as they are. And these things are they are the simplest things a government can do, because the money is there.
But they're very expensive.
Yeah, but the money is there. So all you got to do, Jammeh plunges into debt. You just go and take loans, all right? And build highways, and build airports, and build universities, and build television stations. Jammeh did that.
Because they are politically something that you can always exhibit.
Yeah.
So this
the same trend is continuing. And let me say, these are important also. We need roads. Yeah. Yes, we need electricity. We need water. So, and that is why government is elected. So if that is done, that has to be done. But you see, we just have to put things in their proper context. So that when you look at Jammeh, after doing all of those things, poverty only increased, deprivation increased, lack of opportunities. We saw, social, economic, not to talk about civil and political, so that we saw many governments fleeing for economic social reasons. But we saw many Gambians also fleeing or disappearing for political reasons. All right. So at the end of the day, we had all the television station, the university, we've never had it, and roads that we've never seen, and street lights we've never seen. Yes. So today we are having a man called Barrow leading us, and these things are continuing. They're expanding them, but still poverty has increased. I mean, there are reports that poverty has increased. I understand.
But the GDP has grown.
Yeah. No, even in Jammeh's time, GDP was growing. Even in Jammeh's time, because people got to understand what is GDP, gross domestic product, so that you can have a very high GDP but a very low human development.
Yes.
Yes, because I mean, if you bring in foreign companies here, all right, businesses can, or even local businesses can operate, but at the end of the day, they make profits. The banks make profits, big profits here. The GSM companies, the petrol companies, the other companies, they make big profits here. And all of those goods and services they are selling, when it all put together, it can show in the Gambia a huge amount of revenue has been companies. But then look at those companies, how much are they paying their staff, for example? All right. So that you look at it, that at the end of the day, yes, they are making profits, but their staff are still poor. They are under the poverty line because these salaries are such that at the end of the day cannot meet,
In fact, that's one of the things that we wanted to discuss.
Yeah.
What's your take on a country like the Gambia, talking about employment, unemployment, underemployment, but still don't have a baseline to say this is a minimum wage?
Yeah, so we don't have a minimum wage. And this is also a matter, not just before 2016. I have been engaged on labor issues, workers' rights. I understand. We don't have a labor minimum wage, but also we lack statistics. Like you go to Ministry of Trade or the Labor Office, to get statistics in terms of how many jobs are created. Because we hear the ministry say we create 150,000 jobs. How many times Hamad Ba announced that?
But they have.
Yeah. But then
it doesn't necessarily need to be direct. It could be indirect ways.
No, but show the evidence. If you're following, and now this is also about modernizing and our economy competence. It's about efficiency in public service and so on. If you look at, let's say, the U.S. economy, the U.S. or France or UK also, they will tell you every week how many jobs have been created. And tangibly, they can tell you where those things are. Because data is so important for our development.
But they have the system.
Yeah, but we have to create the system. We are 60 years old. By now, we have absolutely no excuse. Singapore, which is producing the same data, gained independence in the same year as the Gambia. So we have absolutely no excuse.
But in a different environment, in a different opportunity. Because if you look at Singapore, as small as it is, a good number of people, because they had the river, they had the sea. And then all those, they built the seaports and people were using it.
No. Kausu, from this show, go and Google and research Singapore.
Yes.
GDP, socio-economic status in 1965.
I agree.
Yeah, if you compare to the Gambia, I
was
guarantee you Gambia was better.
Yes.
All right. And Singapore, no two countries are the same.
Yes.
But Singapore does not have any better opportunities than the Gambia. And one can claim Gambia doesn't have any better opportunities than Singapore. But the point is, Singapore, and we can give many other examples, transformed from a third world country like the Gambia in 1965, to a fourth world country, among the top 5 most developed countries in the world by today.
Yes.
Yeah. So why? Because of that leadership.
Leadership is one of it.
Yeah.
But the environment was also another thing.
No. I don't know what you mean by environment, because
if you are to make Gambia build ports everywhere, if people bring it, where would they sell it? Because Dubai created a market. Gambia, we don't have the market, we don't have the population.
No. But Dubai, the population of Dubai is not even half a million. All right. So it is not that Dubai people are buying the goods, but Dubai has generated itself to be a hub.
Yes.
Do you know how many Americans and Saudi Arabians and Chinese are going to Dubai and Gambians are going to Dubai? Yeah, they made it a hub. Yes. Singapore also, the population of Singapore is, it's not up to maybe 5 million people. Yeah, I understand. But they have transformed.
Yes.
They because they invested in their people. The leadership recognized very early at the beginning Lee Kuan Yew. The first president, he wrote a book, from third world to a first world country, the story of Singapore. It was published in 2000. Right? By 1990, Singapore was already a first world country. Yeah, I understand. So, I mean, his leadership, in 1965, he said, meritocracy, investing in the people, and accountability. These were the three pillars this man understood and put in place.
Okay.
All right. So to me, and I can debate this with anyone, Gambia is a highly endowed, opportune country.
Seriously?
Yes. I mean, no, we have an ocean.
Yes.
We have an ocean. Yes. We have a river Gambia. We have a fertile land. We have sunlight. We have the wind. What more do we need? Above all, we have Kausu and Mari, human beings. So Gambia, I mean, I cry when I hear public officials, technocrats, intellectuals say Gambia is not a well-endowed country. Gambia is not a rich country in natural resources.
You don't have other natural resources. You don't have oil.
No, but we don't need to have oil to be at Singapore's level. Does Singapore have oil?
No, I said you've mentioned one thing, that is the leadership. But their environment is also conducive.
What kind of environment?
No, because they are in a center where all other countries can come and use it as a hub.
Every country is at a center.
How can the Gambia be at a center?
Well, I don't know which center you mean, because if you put the globe, Singapore is not at the center. Yes. No. I mean, Singapore is not at the center necessarily, and you don't have to be in the center. Dubai is not in the center.
No, today, if you want to export outside the Gambia, we must go through Senegal.
No. You have the ocean. You have the ocean. You can
river transport.
Yes, but there's nothing wrong also to go through Senegal by air or by land. I mean, if you made this a hub, you'll see Nigerian trucks come, Nigerians as tourists drive, Ghanaians, Senegalese, I mean, Mauritanians drive through Senegal and come to Gambia for pleasure, for leisure.
But the restrictions will be there.
No, but I mean, you see, Singapore, and I don't want to make this a Singapore talk. Singapore is locked, between unfriendly nations, Malaysia, China, I think Cambodia and Indonesia, and it's a tiny land, supposed to the Gambia. They don't have that space. All right. So for me, we are far more naturally more advantaged, than Singapore. Right. But as I said, I don't want to say,
absolutely,
which country, because for me, no country is more opportune than the other. Like you take a country like Japan, I mean, just a few days ago I was saying, like, I don't know whether I want to live in Japan, because every month there's some earthquake, there's some tsunami, but look at where Japan is.
Time is not on our side.
Right, and here we can sit here the whole year. Or you look at America itself, the whole year Gambia, no earthquake. No tsunami,
but so many floods.
No hurricane, no floods. No, we don't have floods.
Oh, come on.
No. What we have is man-made flood because of the corruption in the poor road construction in this country. Today, the rains. Look at Banjul. Look at Westfield. What kind of Kausu? Gambians haven't seen rain. The rain that comes to Gambia.
Yes, that is very true.
That is very little. Go to Sierra Leone and Guinea and see rainfall.
Yes.
Go to Indonesia and see rainfall.
But Guinea is not a flat land like the Gambia. Guinea had hills. People can live on top of the hills.
No. But when did Westfield start to flood? When I was a kid, Westfield wasn't flooding. When I was a child, I went to Mohammed Primary School. Yes. All right. I mean,
Banjul.
In Banjul in the 70s. Banjul wasn't flooding like it is flooding.
But what was the population of Gambia?
No, it wasn't the population, because it's the same streets there. The same. The problem of Banjul is because you have a poor road construction. You have a failure to properly manage the drainage, to create drainage and so on. So that is the problem.
Time is not on our side. If not, we could have argued. Yes. Banjul has been reformed of recent.
Poorly. Very poorly. Yeah, they should return our money.
Okumadi, it was really a pleasure, but finally, I know the control room has indicated us that time is not on our side, but finally, what would you use as the final point to wrap up? And then we've known no democracy can occur without peace, and we would also want you to use the opportunity to call for peace as we head for elections.
Yes, I mean, we need peace, but peace for me is an outcome.
Okay.
All right. It is contingent on a lot of factors, and key among this is the adherence to the rule of law. The peace and stability or the violence and conflict in this country is in the hands of the state, primarily. You know, and so the state, more than anyone else, need to uphold the law. And upholding the law means preventing corruption. One of the greatest threat to peace is corruption, and it is so high in this country. And corruption is the greatest threat to violations of human rights, and it is prevalent in this country. Poor service delivery, all right, is a result of corruption, which is very high, which is a threat to peace. All right. So I call for peace. As citizens, regardless, we have a responsibility to maintain peace. But this peace cannot be wishful thinking. Okay. We have to be pragmatic about it. And to be pragmatic about it is to call on the state, all right, the president in particular, that he needs to combat corruption, respect human rights, abide by the rule of law, and perform. That state institutions, public institutions, perform and deliver efficient goods and services. That, for me, is the guarantee for peace, first and foremost. The rest of it is why all of this is coming, the hate speech and the disinformation perpetrated particularly by the political parties, all right, and the politicians and their supporters. You know, that they also have a stake at the end of the day. I mean, regardless of how much we disagree with one another, we should not engage in hate speech. Absolutely. We should not engage in, you know, disinformation, all right, to try to caricature each other and so on. Yeah, so I want to say, therefore, let's maintain peace, but to understand what peace entails. Otherwise, we will be saying peace, and we've been saying that all the time, every day, you know, peace is our language. But then, does peace exist in the Gambia? Because someone said peace, there's a thing called graveyard peace. Sometimes, you know, you go to the graveyard, for example, it's all quiet, silent, yes. Silent. But people are, you know, buried, and you don't know what they are going through. And people can be silent, like in the Gambia, calm. You know, we don't have conflicts as it is. But then, you know, cost of living, you know, this cash power. Yes, I mean, you know, school fees, you know, health bills, and so on, are so terrible, you know, for people. And that also doesn't help peace, because people are sitting with a lot of anger and frustration, and, you know, again, going back, seeing all the corruption that is taking place, all the violations, it doesn't help. They said
alleged.
Yes.
They said alleged corruption.
No, well, you can say that. I mean, I accuse the president and his cabinet of corruption 100%. Yeah.
But thank you so much for honoring the invitation. Thank you so much for coming. We've thanked all those people on the social media with your comments. It has been a great moment, those that are following. But until we come your way next time, I am your host, Kausu Baji. Let's continue the conversation at a national level. Talk to the nation. We thank the technicians and the whole production team for their time and energy. Uncle Madi, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. You know, it's a pleasure being here. And this conversation should continue. Next time, we should just speak in Mandinka and Wolof.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you so much.
Yes,
very well.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.